This story is about Amelia Carter when she confronts her childhood trauma within a haunted mansion, unearthing a malevolent force. As she battles supernatural horrors and delves into the shadows of her past, she discovers that the echoes of eternity are bound to her very existence, leaving a chilling legacy that defies escape. Remember to like and subscribe for more content just like this. Now, let's begin the story. Amelia Carter stood at the forest's edge, the ominous silhouette of the abandoned mansion veiled in a thick curtain of fog. The air hung heavy with moisture, dampening the sounds of rustling leaves and distant crows. Her breath materialized in the chill, each exhale a visible testament to the cold grip the past had on her. The path leading to the mansion was overgrown, reclaiming its territory with a defiant tangle of thorns and creeping vines. As Amelia pushed her way through the twisted undergrowth, the silence intensified, broken only by the occasional snap of a twig beneath her boots. The haunting solitude weighed on her, amplifying the pounding rhythm of her heartbeat. The mansion emerged like a ghostly apparition, its grandeur long, eclipsed by time's relentless decay. Gothic spires reached for the heavens, their jagged edges etched against the gray canvas of the fog. Ivy clung desperately to weathered stones, as if reluctant to release the once majestic structure to the passage of years. Amelia's pulse quickened as she approached the wrought iron gates, each step echoing in the desolation that surrounded her. Memories of laughter and innocence clashed with the oppressive atmosphere, a collision of past and present that left her unsettled. She shivered, not from the cold, but from the tendrils of a history she had tried so hard to forget. The gates groaned in protest as she pushed them open, the sound reverberating through the silence like a distant lament. The mansion loomed, its darkened windows staring down like vacant eyes. A sense of foreboding settled upon Amelia, a feeling that the secrets hidden within its decaying walls were eager to be unearthed. As she stepped over the threshold, the air within the mansion seemed to shift. The stillness intensified, and the echoes of her own footsteps took on an otherworldly quality. Shadows danced along the faded wallpaper, whispering secrets only the walls had known for decades. Amelia's skepticism wavered, replaced by an uneasy recognition that the past held a tight grip on the present. She moved deeper into the mansion, guided only by the feeble glow of her flashlight. The creaking floorboards beneath her seemed to protest her intrusion, each step a reminder that she was treading on ground steeped in history, both her own and that of the mansion's enigmatic past. The air grew colder, and a chill ran down Amelia's spine as she approached a grand staircase that spiraled upwards into darkness. It was here, in the heart of the mansion, that the past beckoned with ghostly fingers, urging her to confront the demons she had long tried to bury. The air within the mansion hung heavy with the scent of decay, as if the walls themselves exhaled a mournful sigh. Amelia's footsteps echoed through the grand entrance hall, each step reverberating through the desolation that clung to the abandoned mansion. The dim light filtered through moth-eaten curtains, casting a feeble glow on the peeling wallpaper adorned with faded floral patterns. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the mansion, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. Dust particles danced in the air, caught in the ethereal play of dim light, creating an otherworldly ballet that seemed to whisper of long-forgotten secrets. The floor beneath her creaked in protest, its wooden fibers groaning beneath the weight of years gone by. Amelia's fingers trailed along the ornate banister, the wood worn smooth by passage of time. The mansion seemed frozen in a perpetual state of decay, a relic of an era long past. An old chandelier, its crystals coated in a film of neglect, hung from the ceiling like a spectral pendulum, casting fragmented rainbows across the walls. A door stood ajar at the end of the corridor, inviting Amelia to delve further into the mansion's mysteries. The room beyond revealed a forgotten study, its shelves lined with dusty tomes that seemed to sag under the weight of untold stories. Faded ink on brittle pages told of esoteric ritual that unfolded within these very walls. A chill snaked its way down Amelia's spine as she examined an ancient tome laid open on a desk. The ritual spoke of shadows that hungered for despair, entities drawn to the darkest recesses of the human soul. The realization clung to her like a specter, and she felt the mansion itself watching, waiting. As she moved through the mansion's corridors, the shadows seemed to dance in response to her presence. Whispers, barely audible, teased the edges of her consciousness. Were they the remnants of the past or the sinister prelude to an impending nightmare? Amelia reached the heart of the mansion, a vast ballroom shrouded in darkness. The once grand space now echoed with the haunting memories of a celebration long gone. A broken chandelier swung in a macabre waltz, casting elongated shadows that writhed along the walls. It was here that the malevolent force began to awaken. The air thickened with an unseen presence, and the room seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Shadows detached themselves from the corners, coalescing into indistinct forms that slithered across the floor. Amelia stood at the center of the ballroom, a lone figure surrounded by the encroaching darkness. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of voices that spoke of despair and impending doom. In the quiet of that forsaken ballroom, the malevolent force made its presence known, a harbinger of nightmares that lingered in the corners of Amelia's consciousness. In the shadows, unseen eyes watched as Amelia confronted the echoes of despair that clung to the mansion's very foundations. The malevolent force reveled in the fear it stirred, laying the groundwork for a nightmarish symphony that would echo through the corridors of the abandoned mansion. The air within the mansion hung heavy, pregnant with an oppressive silence that seemed to bear witness to decades of secrets. Amelia's footsteps reverberated through the cavernous halls, each echo a reminder of the forgotten tales etched into the decaying walls. The flickering light from her flashlight cast dancing shadows, creating an eerie ballet that accompanied her hesitant journey. As she explored further, the mansion's architecture unfolded like a haunted symphony, each room an instrument playing a discordant melody. The wallpaper, once adorned with opulent patterns, now peeled away like the fragile skin of some long-forgotten creature. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of light, suspended in the air like ethereal specters, unwilling to settle. The silence was abruptly shattered by the first whispers, barely audible but unmistakably present. A symphony of hushed voices echoed through the halls, each utterance tinged with a spectral sorrow. Amelia's heart quickened, and she strained to discern the words that seemed to linger just beyond comprehension. "Why did you leave us?" The whisper, laden with longing, curled around her like a spectral tendril. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She turned, her flashlight casting long shadows that seemed to stretch and recoil with a life of their own. The mansion, once a silent witness, now whispered its tales to her, as if the very walls had memories of their own. The voices persisted as she ventured deeper into the mansion's heart, growing in intensity like a gathering storm. The whispers seemed to emanate from the peeling wallpaper, the cracked floorboards, and the ancient portraits that adorned the walls. They spoke of pain, betrayal, and an unrelenting darkness that clung to the mansion like a malevolent specter. "Don't trust the shadows," another voice cautioned, the words punctuated by an otherworldly chill that brushed against Amelia's skin. A subtle unease settled over her, amplified by the dancing play of shadows that seemed to twist and contort in response to the whispers. The mansion, it seemed, was alive with the residue of its past, and Amelia was an unwilling audience to its haunting recital. Her breath fogged the air as she exhaled, the temperature dropping perceptibly. The whispers grew more insistent, a cacophony of voices rising and falling like a spectral tide. Amelia pressed forward, driven by a mix of journalistic determination and an unshakable sense that the mansion held a truth she was meant to uncover. As she turned a corner, the whispers reached a crescendo, a chorus of despair that enveloped her in a chilling embrace. Shadows seemed to detach themselves from the walls, coalescing into phantom shapes that flitted through the periphery of her vision. The boundaries between the living and the spectral blurred, and the mansion, once a mere backdrop, became an entity with a voice that spoke in whispers, revealing the depths of its malevolent soul. Amelia's flashlight flickered, the shadows closing in, and the whispers became a dissonant symphony of horror. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the weight of the past, and in that moment, the mansion revealed its true nature, a malevolent force that delighted in the fear it instilled. In the suffocating darkness, Amelia stood at the crossroads of revelation and terror, the whispers echoing through the haunted halls, foretelling a tale that begged to be told, even at the cost of her sanity. The air within the mansion grew dense as Amelia delved deeper into its heart, the dim light flickering overhead, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance to a macabre melody. Creaking floorboards whispered tales of the past, and the wallpaper, peeling and stained, bore silent witness to the mansion's secrets. Amelia found herself standing before a grand mirror, its ornate frame tarnished with age. As she gazed into its murky surface, the room's temperature plummeted. Wisps of breath escaped her lips, forming ghostly apparitions in the chilled air. The reflection staring back at her seemed distorted, as if the mirror itself held the memories of the mansion. The whispers, once distant, now swirled around her like a sinister orchestra, tuning up for a spectral performance. The tales of the spirits echoed in disjointed harmonies, their voices blending into a haunting cacophony that resonated through the very foundations of the mansion. In the mirror's reflection, figures materialized, apparitions of the past, frozen in the moments before their demise. A woman in a tattered gown wept silently in a corner, her ethereal form flickering like a dying candle. A man, his face contorted in terror, reached out as if pleading for salvation that would never come. Each specter bore the weight of their tragic tales, eternally bound to the mansion that had witnessed their demise. Amelia, transfixed by the unfolding spectral testimonies, felt a chill crawl down her spine. She sensed the malevolent entity's presence, a dark force manipulating the very fabric of the supernatural realm she found herself entangled in. Shadows writhed along the edges of the room, coalescing into sinister shapes that seemed to mock the living. The temperature dropped further, and the room became a canvas for the spirits to project their memories. Amelia could feel their pain, their fear, their despair, seeping into her very soul. It was as if the mansion itself had become a living, breathing entity, exhaling the tragedy of its past with every shuddering breath. As the spectral testimonies unfolded, a voice, both distant and intimate, echoed through the chamber. "You are not welcome here," it murmured, the words riding on the coattails of a bone-chilling wind. It was a warning, a plea, wrapped in the haunting melody of the unseen forces that governed the mansion. Amelia, undeterred, pressed forward, determined to unravel the enigma that bound her to the mansion's grim history. She whispered questions to the apparitions, their responses manifesting as cryptic fragments of a puzzle. The malevolent entity, sensing her intrusion, intensified its influence, distorting the room's reality. As Amelia navigated the maze of memories, the line between the living and the dead blurred, and the mansion itself seemed to exhale a mournful sigh, a lament for the lost souls trapped within its decaying embrace. The ghostly symphony reached its crescendo, leaving Amelia standing alone, surrounded by echoes of the past and the lingering shadows of a malevolence yet to fully reveal itself. The mansion exhaled a palpable sense of malevolence as Amelia ventured deeper into its decaying heart. Shadows clung to the walls like spectral tendrils, whispering secrets of the past. The air, thick with the weight of forgotten despair, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Amelia's footsteps echoed through the desolate halls, each creaking floorboard a testament to the mansion's tormented history. A flickering candle cast elongated shadows that danced along the peeling wallpaper, their erratic movements creating an unsettling choreography. As she explored, the whispers grew more insistent, a spectral chorus that reverberated through the cold air. The disembodied voices seemed to overlap, creating a symphony of anguish that wormed its way into Amelia's consciousness. She strained to decipher the fragmented sentences, catching snippets of regret, pain, and the desperate yearning of lost souls. The atmosphere became charged with an eerie tension, and the temperature plummeted. Breaths visible in the dim light. Unseen eyes seemed to follow Amelia's every move, and the mansion itself became a living entity, responding to the intruder's presence with a malevolent curiosity. Amelia turned a corner, and the hallway stretched endlessly before her, the walls closing in as if alive. Her senses heightened. She became acutely aware of an ethereal presence at her side. A flicker of movement caught her eye, and she glimpsed a shadow that seemed to detach itself from the wall, taking on a shape that mirrored her deepest fears. The specter manifested into a manifestation of Amelia's childhood terror, a grotesque figure that wore the face of her long-buried nightmares. It slithered towards her, movements sinuous and unnatural, whispering taunts that echoed the darkest recesses of her mind. A cold sweat broke across Amelia's forehead as her pulse quickened. The air became suffused with an oppressive energy, and the walls seemed to close in further, threatening to swallow her whole. The flickering candlelight cast eerie, elongated shadows that danced in macabre celebration of her distress. The whispers crescendoed into a dissonant cacophony, drowning out rational thought. Amelia felt a hand on her shoulder, icy fingers that clutched at her sanity. She spun around, but the hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, trapping her in a nightmarish labyrinth of her own fears. Desperation etched across her face. Amelia pressed forward, the malevolent entity orchestrating her terror with sadistic precision. The mansion itself seemed to protest her intrusion, its walls groaning as if in sympathy with the torment she endured. In the heart of the mansion's spectral grip, Amelia faced the convergence of reality and nightmare. The shadows pulsed with a malevolent life of their own, undulating in a rhythmic dance that mirrored the erratic beating of her heart. As the crescendo of terror reached its zenith, the walls seemed to shudder, and the grotesque figure loomed closer. Amelia's breath caught in her throat as she braced herself for the final confrontation, the boundary between the living and the supernatural dissolving in the suffocating embrace of the mansion's malevolence. Amelia's flashlight flickered in the dimness, casting elongated shadows that seemed to dance to a malevolent rhythm. The air within the mansion hung heavy with the weight of unseen eyes, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like ghostly whispers from another realm. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the decaying structure, the walls themselves seemed to groan in acknowledgement of her presence. The spectral testimonies had taken their toll on Amelia's nerves. The disembodied voices of the trapped souls replayed the tragic events that had unfolded within these walls, their sorrowful echoes reverberating in her mind. She could feel the oppressive history closing in, intertwining with her own memories, like vines ensnaring her sanity. Amelia's steps quickened as an otherworldly chill permeated the air, causing her breath to crystallize in front of her. A shadow detached itself from the wall, slithering across the floor with an almost serpentine grace. It coiled around her ankles, a tangible manifestation of the malevolent force that sought to consume her. "Amelia," a voice whispered, not from the shadows but from within her mind, a haunting resonance that sent shivers down her spine. It was a voice she recognized, a distorted echo of her own childhood fears. Memories long suppressed clawed their way to the surface, each step through the mansion's corridors, becoming a descent into the abyss of her past. The walls seemed to close in, adorned with peeling wallpaper that twisted into grotesque faces, leering at her with malicious intent. Every portrait on the walls appeared to watch her with accusing eyes, their silent judgment amplifying the torment within her. The air itself seemed tainted, carrying the scent of damp decay and forgotten regrets. As she reached the grand staircase, a dissonant melody echoed through the mansion, a haunting piano tune that felt like a requiem for lost souls. The notes warped and twisted, resonating with the discord in Amelia's own fractured psyche. She hesitated, gripping the banister with trembling hands, torn between the compulsion to ascend into the heart of the darkness and the instinct to flee. The malevolent entity seized this moment of vulnerability, distorting the very fabric of reality around her. The walls seemed to bleed, oozing darkness that swallowed the feeble glow of her flashlight. The floor beneath her feet became an undulating sea of shadows, threatening to pull her into its abyssal depths. "Amelia," the voice whispered again, now a cacophony of tortured souls entwined with her own inner demons. Sanity teetered on the precipice as the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred into a surreal tapestry of horror. In the midst of the madness, Amelia pressed forward, driven by a desperate need to confront the source of her torment. Each step echoed louder, the symphony of her fears reaching a crescendo. The mansion, a malevolent maestro, conducted a macabre symphony, and Amelia, the unwilling soloist, played her part in a descent into the darkest recesses of her soul. The air within the mansion hung heavy, pregnant with the weight of centuries. Old secrets. Amelia's flashlight cut through the thick darkness, casting long, distorted shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Whispers, like ethereal fingers, brushed against her consciousness, leaving a trail of goosebumps in their wake. Every step reverberated through the empty halls, as if awakening the dormant malevolence that clung to the walls. As Amelia moved deeper into the mansion, the spirits became more than mere apparitions. They were echoes of anguish, trapped between the dimensions of the living and the dead. Ghostly figures flickered in and out of existence, their faces contorted in silent screams that told tales of long-forgotten torment. The oppressive silence shattered as Amelia entered a decaying room at the heart of the mansion. A single, flickering candle illuminated an ancient pentagram etched into the floor. The very air seemed charged with an otherworldly energy, and a chill ran down Amelia's spine as she realized the ritual's significance. With each hesitant step, the whispers intensified, forming a dissonant symphony of agony. Images of the past played out before her eyes like a spectral tapestry. Hooded figures conducting a ritual, a sacrificial altar, and a darkness that hungered for fear. Amelia's trembling hand traced the lines of the pentagram, feeling an invisible force pulling her toward the center. The room seemed to pulse with malevolence, and shadows clung to the edges of her vision, threatening to engulf her. The boundary between the living and the supernatural blurred, and the air crackled with an ominous energy. As she delved into the memories trapped within the room, the sinister connection between her past and the mansion unraveled. The ritual, performed decades ago, was a conduit for the malevolent force that now sought to claim her. The entity fed on the fear etched into the very walls, a hunger that had festered since that fateful night. A spectral figure materialized before Amelia, its hollow eyes fixated on her with a mournful gaze. It spoke in hushed tones, recounting the events that had led to the mansion's descent into darkness. The shadows deepened, wrapping around Amelia like tendrils, as if the entity sought to draw her into the abyss. Amelia, caught between the living and the supernatural, felt the weight of her past and the malevolent force converging. The sinister connection tightened its grip, and she could sense the entity's desire to break her resolve, to make her a permanent resident of the haunted mansion. In the dim glow of the candle, Amelia confronted the spectral figure, demanding answers, pleading for release. The room trembled with unseen forces, and the pentagram seemed to pulse with a malevolent heartbeat. The climax of the confrontation loomed, promising either salvation or eternal entrapment in the mansion's shadowy embrace. The air in the mansion hung heavy with the weight of malevolence as Amelia ascended the decaying staircase, each step creaking in protest. The walls seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, and the flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. The moment had arrived, the final confrontation with the entity that lurked in the shadows. The grand hall on the upper floor was adorned with faded tapestries, depicting scenes of era long forgotten. Amelia's breath hitched as she sensed a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Whispers, like ethereal tendrils, wrapped around her, weaving tales of anguish and despair. Her pulse quickened, matching the erratic rhythm of the flickering candles. A door at the end of the hall beckoned ominously. As Amelia approached, it swung open with a drawn-out creak, revealing a room consumed by darkness. The malevolent entity awaited within, its presence manifesting as an oppressive force that seemed to suck the light from the very air. Entering the room, Amelia found herself surrounded by an unnatural darkness that defied the feeble illumination of her flashlight. The shadows seemed to writhe, taking form as tendrils that slithered across the room. The air became charged with an electric tension, and the temperature plummeted. A voice, neither a whisper nor a growl, echoed through the void, resonating in Amelia's mind. "Amelia," it hissed, a spectral symphony that sent shivers down her spine. "You cannot escape what resides within you." The room trembled as the malevolent entity coalesced into a semblance of substance. A silhouette, darker than the void, materialized before her, eyes devoid of warmth fixed on Amelia, penetrating her soul with a gaze that seemed to draw out her deepest fears. "You carry the echoes of this place within you," the entity intoned. Its voice, a symphony of tormented souls. Face them, or be consumed by the shadows that bind you. Amelia, her heart pounding, clutched a talisman from her pocket, a relic from her childhood. Its familiarity offered a tenuous anchor in the sea of darkness. As she raised it, the malevolent entity recoiled, as if repelled by the feeble light it emanated. But the shadows fought back, swirling and contorting, threatening to extinguish the talisman's meager glow. Amelia felt the weight of her past bearing down on her, the trauma she had long suppressed clawing at the edges of her consciousness. In that moment of vulnerability, the entity seized the opportunity, morphing into grotesque shapes that mirrored Amelia's deepest fears. Whispers intensified, urging her to surrender to the encroaching darkness. Yet, in the face of overwhelming terror, Amelia summoned the strength within. With a defiant cry, she thrust the talisman forward, a beacon against the encroaching shadows. The room convulsed as if in agony, the entity writhing in the face of its own demise. As the darkness recoiled, Amelia's surroundings began to stabilize. The room ceased its malevolent tremors, and the whispers faded into distant echoes. The entity, vanquished, dissipated like smoke in the wind. Amelia stood alone in the now hallowed room, the weight of her past lifted but not forgotten. The mansion, once a bastion of horror, exhaled a final, lingering breath. The shadows, though diminished, clung to the walls like fading memories. Leaving the room, Amelia descended the staircase, the mansion's malevolence yielding to a newfound stillness. Yet, as she crossed the threshold into the fog, shrouded forest, a haunting whisper lingered on the wind, a reminder that some shadows never truly fade. Amelia stood alone in the heart of the mansion, surrounded by the remnants of her ordeal. The air hung heavy with a chilling stillness that clung to her skin like a spectral whisper. The malevolent entity, once a shadowy puppeteer orchestrating her fears, now lay defeated but not extinguished. Its lingering essence seeped into the cracked walls, a residue of malevolence staining the very foundation of the decaying mansion. The silence was deafening as Amelia took tentative steps, the floorboards groaning beneath her weight. The rooms, once alive with spectral testimonies, echoed with the hollowness of a dark history. She could feel the eyes of the trapped spirits watching her, their ethereal gaze lingering in the air like an accusing murmur. The mansion seemed to exhale a sigh of resignation, as if acknowledging the defeat of its resident malevolence. Yet in the corners of the rooms and within the hidden recesses of the mansion, shadows still danced, refusing to yield entirely to the encroaching light. The very essence of fear clung to the air, a phantom perfume that tainted every breath Amelia took. As she moved through the labyrinthine corridors, memories of her confrontation with the entity played out in her mind like a twisted film reel. The manifestations of her deepest fears, the surreal blend of the past and present, all became indistinguishable from the reality that now surrounded her. The line between nightmare and wakefulness blurred, leaving her with a lingering uncertainty that clawed at the edges of her sanity. In the room where the final confrontation had taken place, a cold wind whispered through the broken windows, carrying with it the remnants of the malevolent force. Amelia felt a shiver crawl down her spine, an involuntary response to the unseen fingers of fear still brushing against her consciousness. The walls, once witnesses to unspeakable horrors, seemed to absorb the residual anguish, pulsating with a dark energy that refused to dissipate. With each step, the mansion seemed to sigh, releasing pent-up sorrow and despair. Yet beneath the facade of defeated malevolence, a subtle undercurrent of maleficence lingered, a sinister reminder that some horrors couldn't be banished entirely. The very fabric of the mansion bore witness to the sins of its past, and Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows cast by the entity still whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. As she crossed the threshold of the mansion's entrance, the fog outside enveloped her like a shroud. The world beyond seemed both unfamiliar and tainted by the malevolence she had faced. The trees whispered secrets of their own, and the wind carried echoes of the tormented spirits she had encountered within. The boundary between the supernatural and the natural blurred, leaving Amelia with a haunting realization that the mansion's legacy would persist, lingering in the periphery of her reality, like a ghostly afterimage. And so, with a heavy heart and a wary gaze, Amelia left the mansion behind. The fog swallowed the decaying structure, obscuring it from view. But the horror endured, a chilling reminder that some nightmares, once unleashed, eternally haunted the spaces they once called home. The final echo of Amelia's footsteps reverberated through the dilapidated halls as she exited the mansion. The oppressive darkness seemed to cling to her like a phantom shroud, reluctant to release its grip. The air outside carried a whisper of relief, but the shadows cast by the decaying structure stretched into the fog, shrouded forest, hinting at the lingering malevolence within. Amelia turned back for one last glance at the mansion, its windows staring like vacant eyes into the depths of her soul. The facade revealed no secrets, yet the weight of the unseen horrors clung to the very fabric of her being. Her breath caught in her throat as she stepped away, leaving the mansion to its own silent decay. As she moved through the overgrown courtyard, a cold breeze carried with it the faintest murmur, a spectral whisper that seemed to reach out from the shadows. It spoke in a language of the forgotten, cryptic, and haunting. Amelia's heart quickened, and she hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and the morbid curiosity that had led her here. The fog, dense and suffocating, wrapped around her like a spectral cloak, obscuring the path ahead. In the distance, the mansion's silhouette loomed, a dark monolith against the night. The whisper persisted, growing in intensity, as if the very fabric of reality strained to communicate some ancient truth. Against her better judgment, Amelia followed the ethereal voice, guided by an unseen force. The forest seemed to come alive with shadows that slithered through the underbrush, forming ephemeral figures that danced at the edge of her vision. Every step echoed with the spectral choir of the forgotten, a chorus of pain and despair. The fog thickened, swallowing the world around her. Amelia's senses heightened, and the boundaries between the living and the supernatural blurred. Whispers enveloped her, overlapping and intertwining, until they formed a dissonant melody of the macabre. Suddenly, the fog parted, revealing a clearing bathed in an eerie glow. In the center stood a gnarled tree, its branches reaching towards the heavens like twisted fingers. The whispers crescendoed, their urgency demanding attention. Amelia approached the tree, and as she did, the whispers coalesced into a single voice, a voice that echoed with familiarity. It spoke a name she had tried to bury in the recesses of her memory. The roots of the tree seemed to writhe, forming an image, a specter from her past, a face she thought she had left behind within the mansion's haunted corridors. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. The malevolent force had not been vanquished. It had merely transformed, embedding itself in the very fabric of her existence. The fog thickened once more, and the spectral figure extended a shadowy hand towards her. As the whispering voice intensified, the figure spoke a final, chilling revelation. You cannot escape what is already a part of you, Amelia. The shadows cast by your past will follow you, always. The fog enveloped her, the clearing dissolved, and the whispers faded into an ominous silence. The gnarled tree stood alone in the dark, its twisted branches casting long shadows that seemed to stretch beyond the confines of reality. Amelia was left standing at the edge of the forest, the weight of her own shadowy legacy pressing upon her. The mansion, now a distant silhouette, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. The truth she sought had been unveiled, but the journey into the shadows had only just begun. With a shiver coursing through her, Amelia stepped into the unknown, the fog swallowing her form. The forest whispered secrets that danced with the shadows, leaving the fate of Amelia Carter entwined with the malevolence that lurked within the haunting depths of the past.